Hey everyone, welcome back to the layout. The first train of the day is Union Pacific Train ZBRLC, a high-priority intermodal train from Brooklyn, Oregon to the Los Angeles Transportation Center down in Los Angeles, California. This train usually sneaks through in the early morning hours, but due to maintenance up north on the Fresno subdivision, the train has been significantly delayed and now must compensate with a daytime run. Following behind it further up north is Union Pacific MRVLB, a daily mixed freight train from Roseville, California to Long Beach, California. But this train will have to wait for BNSF's Z-Stow-Wisp, which is a daily high-priority intermodal that runs from Stockton, California to Willow Springs, Illinois. This train tends to arrive at Bakersfield around 9 or 9:30 in the morning, where it will perform a very odd and unique duty. The lead locomotives will detach and pick up mechanically insulated refrigerator cars from the yard. These are usually filled with produce and other high-priority goods that need to be shipped off using insulation. Also lined up in the yard are various southbound trains that will trickle out through the yard throughout the day. Of course, these will also need clearance and permission, and with two high-priority trains on the line, that's not going to be happening anytime soon. So the reefers are fully connected up to the train, another air brake test is run to make sure that everything's in operational order, and BNSF's Z-train is ready to depart. However, first, it has to contact the dispatcher to get permission to enter the Union Pacific main line. Here's how that exchange would go.
Dispatcher 56, over.
This is BNSF 3906, over.
BNSF 3906, go ahead.
We'd like to activate our TCS 2335 for 4,700 feet, not a key.
Okay, BNSF 3906, 4,700 feet, not a key, signal indication, dispatcher out.
So after activating their Track Condition Summary, or TCS, and confirming that they're not a key or a train carrying hazardous material, our train is free to enter the main line via Kern Junction. Meanwhile, in the Union Pacific yard, the MRVLB has finally reached the yard. However, it's gonna have to stop and hold here until the BNSF Z train is clear. Once there's sufficient distance, our mixed freight can continue upwards. Now we have 3 southbound trains spread out throughout the pass. Mixed freight trains are usually lower priority, which means they'll have to stop and hold for the higher priority stack trains. On the other end of the line, BNSF decides to complicate our day a bit by throwing in H Barstow, a high-priority mixed freight train from Barstow, California to Stockton, California. This train has sufficient distance and an uninterrupted run to climb out of the desert up into the Tehachapi Basin and eventually get ready to descend down the pass. However, with the approaching Z trains, it's gonna have to be stopped somewhere, like the loop, to wait for the other trains to pass. This manifest is a lower priority train, which means it could have to stop and wait for a little while. However, thankfully, our crew lucked out today, as the ZBRLC is not far away. In areas with stretches of single track, where trains can't pass each other, the railroad becomes a giant jigsaw puzzle played with trains of differing priority levels. As previously stated, intermodal trains typically have higher priority than mixed freight trains, which means this lucky crew for the Union Pacific will have no trouble at all taking their train out into the desert and eventually into the Los Angeles Basin. Back to the manifest, it still hasn't moved from the loop, as the Z-Stow-Wisp still needs to pass. However, once this train is clear, our BNSF manifest is clear to proceed straight towards Bakersfield with no interruptions, as the dispatcher has lined the MRVLB to stop at Bealville and let this manifest pass. So, H. Barstow continues downhill towards Bakersfield, where it'll finally get a new crew, and Union Pacific's MRVLB continues to snake its way up the hill to Bealville, where it'll have to wait. Thankfully, it's not gonna have to stay there for too long, as H. Barstow is already rounding Cliff and is on the approach to Bealville. And once this manifest clears the areas between Tunnel 3 and Tunnel 5, MRVLB is clear to proceed on, basically uninterrupted. Now with the line clear, MRVLB basically has a straight shot out into Mojave and into the desert. From there, it'll likely be stopped at Lancaster to let the next Union Pacific Z train pass by. The BNSF sends another manifest out to travel up the hill, this one being irrelevant to our video, so we won't cover it, but it will intersect H. Barstow on the approach to Bakersfield. The crew on H. Barstow are allowed to take the train between Barstow and Bakersfield. However, they'll have to change out with a new engineer and conductor here in Bakersfield before the train is allowed to continue north to its final destination of Stockton. And this is where we'll end the video here. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something new about how the railroad operates throughout Tehachapi. Stay safe and have a heritage unit. See you later.